All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're not just kicking around some interesting ideas, we are opening up a literal playbook. We're looking at a source that lays out what it calls the occult keys, a super direct, hands-on system for personal power. This is all about less theory and way more technique. So, let's get into it.
So right out of the gate, the source sets a really specific tone. This isn't academic, it's not some dusty old book. It's being presented as insider knowledge. You know, the kind of stuff that gets passed down directly. This quote right here, it frames our entire exploration. We're not just reviewing a book, we're essentially looking inside a user manual for a very, very different kind of technology.
And this is the central question, the one question that the entire system is built on. It asks you to kind of forget what you think you know about how the world works. The source wants us to see reality not as this fixed, solid thing, but as a field, something that can be influenced, something that can be shaped, and yeah, even programmed.
So that is exactly what we are going to do. We're going to break down the core components of this system, step by step, just like they're laid out in the book. Seriously, think of this as a walkthrough of an operating system for your own life.
Okay, so first up, the premise. What is this reality OS actually made of? Well, according to this source, it's not physical matter at its core. It's unseen, energetic currents that are constantly, and I mean constantly, shaping our world.
The book calls them hidden currents of force. Just try to imagine these invisible tides of energy that affect everything, from your mood when you wake up, to your health, to your bank account. The main idea here is that life isn't just random. These currents exist, and you're either learning how to direct them, or, as the source so brutally puts it, you're just driftwood being tossed around by them, and, maybe more importantly, by the people who do know how to direct them.
Okay, so if reality is this big ocean of currents, how do you build yourself a motor and a rudder? How do you stop just drifting? Well, this next section of the source material introduces us to the primary tool, the engine that makes this entire system work.
This quote right here, it just cuts right to the heart of the whole system's no-nonsense approach. It says it's not about faith, it's not about hope in the way we usually think about them. The source is crystal clear. The single operating lever for everything else we're about to talk about is something it calls will.
Now, this is a super important distinction it makes. Will is not wishing. Wishing is passive, it's scattered, it's basically just daydreaming. The source even compares it to trying to cut stone with a feather. It's totally ineffective. Will, on the other hand, is defined as a focused, deliberate projection of psychic energy. It's an active force. It's the tool you use for actually shaping those currents we just talked about.
So the big question is, how do you make this will thing effective? Well, according to the source, it needs this threefold alignment. First, your thought sets the blueprint, the precise goal. Then, your emotion acts as the fuel, charging that thought with raw energy, with life force. And finally, the etheric currents are what actually carry that charged thought out into the world to make things happen. The key is, if any one of these is out of sync, the whole operation just fizzles out.
Okay, so that's the core theory. Now let's get to the fun part and see how this actually builds into practical techniques. The book provides some really specific exercises for two of life's most common goals. You guessed it, health and wealth.
So for health, here's a foundational daily exercise it calls vital breath charging. It's designed to build up and strengthen your personal energy field, your aura. You inhale and you visualize this pure electric white light coming in. You hold your breath for a 4 count, and you see that light condensing inside you, becoming like molten gold. And then you exhale forcefully, projecting that energy out as a protective sphere around you. Just 9 of these breaths a day, the source claims, is enough to build a field that repels negativity and can even speed up healing.
Now for wealth, the book gives us what it calls the No-Fluff sigil method. A sigil is basically a condensed command that's designed to bypass your conscious, critical mind and speak directly to your subconscious. You phrase your intent as a clear command, you condense it down into a unique symbol, and then you charge it with that focused will and intense emotion we talked about. And then, and this is the crucial and kind of counterintuitive part, you have to release it by destroying or hiding the physical sigil.
And here's a quick example of that condensation step in action. The sentence, wealth, flows to me continuously, gets all its vowels and any duplicate letters stripped out, and you're left with this string of consonants, WLTHFMCNYD. And it's from these letters that you would then design your own unique symbol. And this is the part the source really emphasizes. The act of destroying or hiding the sigil is what releases the intention into the field.
The idea is your conscious mind needs to let go. It needs to forget about it so the subconscious and those etheric currents can get to work on the command without you constantly interfering with doubt or worry.
All right, so moving on from just personal health and wealth, the book starts to introduce some more advanced concepts. This is where we shift from just managing your own state to actively influencing your environment and, yeah, the people in it.
And here we get into the concept of a servitor. The source describes this as a thought form that you literally build and program yourself. This isn't some spirit you summon, it's an engineered astral being that you create to carry out a specific task, all on its own. Things like scouting for new business opportunities or working in the background to maintain your health. It's kind of like writing a piece of code and just letting it run.
And this quote, this perfectly captures the philosophy behind this whole science of influence. In any interaction, in any room you walk into, there's an energetic dynamic at play. And the book's stance on this is completely unequivocal. You are either setting the tone or you are having the tone set for you. There is no neutral ground.
So how do you dominate the field? Well, the source gives us this ritual for creating what it calls a sovereign field. It's a really simple but powerful technique. You ground yourself, you visualize this blazing sphere of golden energy expanding from your solar plexus to surround you, and you give it a clear spoken command. This field is designed to project your authority and to filter out any unwanted influences from other people or draining environments.
And this brings us to the final section, and really, the ultimate goal of this entire system. What happens when you've truly mastered these tools and integrated all these principles? Well, the end game isn't about doing more magic, it's about becoming it. So when you first start, you're actively doing all these techniques. You're doing the breath work, you're making the sigils, you're putting up the sovereign field, you are consciously casting spells and performing rituals to get results. But according to the source, with consistent practice, a really fundamental shift starts to happen. All those techniques become so integrated into your being that you don't even need to consciously perform them anymore. Your very presence becomes a continuous act of will. You become the ritual. And this slide, this really illustrates that final state of total integration. Your breath just becomes automatically charged. Your movements radiate your intent. And your focused gaze itself becomes a sigil, a concentrated command that impresses your will directly onto reality. This is the level of mastery the source points toward. And that leaves us with the final and pretty provocative question. This playbook claims that these are the keys to consciously shaping your own life. And it forces us to ask, if you're not the one actively directing these currents, if you're not the one programming your reality, then who or what is?